Warning, contents under pressure by Jeffrey Franken. My heart is packed, so full of love for you, that I dreamed I exploded, like aerosol cans sometimes do.
Welcome back to the 50 Shades of Horror. I'm your host, Roommate, and today we're covering the 16th movie in the series, Frankenhooker. Released in 1990, this movie's a bit over 30 years old by now, and it's been obscure ever since. Though, even just knowing the name, you must be thinking, what kind of savage would recommend a movie called Frankenhooker? But this movie is an underrated gem. Many would say that this is a bad movie, but you can't say this is a bad movie because everyone in the cast and crew understood the assignment. This is an exploitation movie, through and through. The movie is dripping with sleaze, intentionally and expertly. I hope that you can find a lot to love about the lurid and provocative, even if it's by no means smart. In fact, if anything, this movie's guaranteed to give you brain damage. A 15-movie streak for main characters in the 50 Shades of Horror challenge has been broken with this movie. From Max and Hocus Pocus all the way to Cole from The Babysitter, every protagonist has been relatable. Seriously, Jack, Elvira, Janet, Joshua, Adam, Billy, Sherman, Val, Malcolm, Jennifer, Martin, Mike, and Millie all check out. But Frankenhooker changes that. I don't think for 1 second that this movie wants you to relate to Jeffrey. This man is shown as a complete lunatic.
I feel like sometimes I'm plunging headfirst into some kind of black void of sheer, utter madness.
Do you want a sandwich?
His situation sucks. All of his plans backfire horrendously. He is in no way aspirational, which is typically a great thing for a protagonist to be. But one of the strengths of horror is how it can show off what not to do, because sometimes that sends a clearer message. Attraction is powerful, but disgust is even stronger. Making the central character in your story do things that the audience actively doesn't want to do is a risky move. But in movies like Frankenhooker, it's worth it because how else do you get hookers to explode from smoking super crack? So let's back up. What's the story with Frankenhooker? Jeffrey Franken and Elizabeth Shelley are betrothed, living in suburban New Jersey. Jeffrey is basically a mad scientist, always experimenting with electricity and biology. For her dad's birthday, Jeffrey makes him a remote control lawnmower, which Elizabeth wants to demonstrate. In a foolish move, she stands in front of it, so it turns her into, as the news puts it,
a tossed human salad, a salad that police are still trying to gather up, a salad that was once named Elizabeth.
Jeffrey is saddened by her departure, but plans on rectifying it. He recovered a few of her body parts and he wants to bring her back, but there isn't enough of her left over to restore her to life. He has this purple liquid that can rejuvenate tissue, but it can't spontaneously create new limbs or organs. So he has to figure out a way how to replace the parts of her body that he's missing.
It's so simple. If I need female body parts, then I'll buy female body parts.
After going into New York and seeing all kinds of lady parts that would do just fine, he still has the issue of their current owners, both their pimp Zorro and the ladies themselves.
I'm gonna need about 6 or 7 of the most beautiful girls you got on this block. I wanna have a beauty contest for them.
Oh, and you get the winner, right?
I'll make a new woman of her.
They kind of have to be dead for this to work. And although Jeffrey is delusionally sleazy and lethally reckless, he can't bring himself to murder. So he rationalizes that these hookers are doing crack, which will eventually kill them. So if he just presented them with a better crack, which they wanted even more but would kill them even faster, that they would really just be doing themselves in.
I'm not killing anybody. I'm merely gonna place a lethal form of crack in their presence. They don't have to take it. They can just say no.
While he does make arrangements to select a few to harvest, after his inspections, the reality of him facilitating their hasty demise dawns on him, and he has a change of heart.
I can't. Look, I'm sorry. You're all very nice. I can't go through with this. Oh, God, Elizabeth.
What the hell is he talking about?
And who the fuck is Elizabeth?
Are we getting paid?
This naturally leads them to being upset that this big client they've been wasting their time on is going to leave them empty-handed. Jeffrey thinks they're being petty, but he gives them the cash anyway, but conveniently forgets that the super crack was in the bag with the money. So when they discover it, they're overjoyed and start an enthusiastic crack smoking party. Jeffrey tries to stop them, but they think that he's just being a square, so they sit on him to hold him down.
Stop that! Your body wasn't meant to do that!
The party starts off great. They're all having the time of their lives, listening to their jams and smoking their crack. But one by one, they feel overwhelmingly hot before exploding into chunks everywhere. Zorro's upset that the girls have been taking so long, and gets there just in time to have his bottom bitch's head fly through the air to knock him out. Jeffrey recovers a swath of body parts, returning home to assemble them before the oncoming lightning storm. He prepares the new body for Elizabeth and lifts her up to be reanimated. When she comes down, she's alive again all right, but she's way more hooker than Elizabeth.
Want a date? Going out? Looking for some action?
After knocking Jeffrey down, she goes on a journey to return to most of her body's native habitat. On the way, she aggressively looks for a John, and does find one in this guy. She takes him to an hourly hotel that the hookers would frequent, and doesn't realize that she's still supercharged with electricity, which has quite the effect on her client. He doesn't seem to mind though.
Oh, that was wonderful.
On the way out, a disgusting dude forces her to kiss him, and he meets the same shocking end. She finds her way to a bar where Zorro is confusedly lamenting the loss of his workforce to this dude, who doesn't seem too interested.
What's up with you and them exploding bitches?
He is interested in the Elizabeth-headed person who just walked in and takes her towards the back of the place. After he gets up close and personal with her under the table, he similarly explodes from the shock. Zorro sees this and comes back to find out who she is, while noticing that she has body parts of his former employees. She shoves him, which causes him to launch back and knock her block off. Well, mostly off. As her head barely hangs on, electrical energy shoots out of her neck in every direction, causing the entire bar to evacuate. Jeffrey finally makes it back to her, puts her head upright, and takes her home to make repairs, with Zorro following. Jeffrey staples her neck back together and jumpstarts her, but this time when she comes back she's actually Elizabeth again.
You're not a hooker, Elizabeth. You're not. You're not.
Of course I'm not. Why in the world would you ever say anything like that, Jeffrey?
She doesn't remember anything after the accident, so Jeffrey fills her in on what's happened. Just as Jeffrey wants to reunite with her, she realizes that this isn't her body, and she's not too excited about it. Jeffrey tries to tell her that they'll be closer now than ever before, while Zorro sneaks into the lab. He grabs a machete and lobs Jeffrey's head off in one strike. Elizabeth has no idea what's going on, and Zorro reclaims her body by calling out to the hookers.
You hear me, honey? You hear me, Crystal? You hear me, Angel?
The body parts that are still in the fridge hear the call, and they come out after him. Apparently, so many in close proximity caused them to fuse together into grotesque monstrosities. They overpower him and bring him back into the fridge with them. Then Elizabeth picks up Jeffrey's head and decides to return the favor he did for her. He wakes up to Elizabeth explaining that since his reanimation was estrogen-based, that he would need a woman's body, which she found from the leftover parts. And so the story ends, with Jeffrey crying out against the same fate that he thought Elizabeth would welcome. Despite this movie being unabashedly reptile-brained, there's some pretty strong themes in Frankenhooker. And what better theme could there be for a movie about cobbling together prostitute parts than love? In this movie, love is shown through duty. Elizabeth and Jeffrey don't show much attraction to one another, but once she's chopped into pieces, he's compelled to bring her back. His conception of love is about debt. He owes her. He was keen on his unorthodox science before her death, but his need to help her pushes him far past recreation. To bring her back, he'll have to do things he doesn't want to do, but he must, or else maybe he never really loved her. And the duty isn't just from Jeffrey to Elizabeth. She feels like she owes it to him to be in good shape.
I've tried liquid diets, seafood diets, vegetable diets, fruit diets, pills, powders, Weight Watchers, and clinics. I even had Jeffrey staple my stomach.
We get further elaboration on this concept in the date scene, where Jeffrey talks up the perks of her new body.
Can't you picture yourself in this body kneeling on Ma's couch in the basement? I can make you into anything you want. I can make you the centerfold goddess of the century.
One of the big advantages to having Jeffrey be unlikable is showing the way how some gross people think. Jeffrey justifies putting insecurity on Elizabeth by believing that he is pushing her towards greatness. But in reality, he's excited at the prospect of engineering his particular fantasy. So while he deludes himself into thinking he has a higher purpose, he just wants to instill compulsions in Elizabeth. There's no way to escape compulsion for the women in Frankenhooker. As frumpy housewives, they crave pretzels.
I'm still a compulsive eater.
Pretzel's good.
As fit hookers, they crave crack. Inextricably tied to love is another theme of this movie, morality.
Becoming dangerously amoral. I've lost the ability to distinguish between right from wrong.
While Jeffrey feels like he owes the most to his wife, he needs to help all the hookers that he blew up too.
I want to apologize to everybody here. I'm going to put everybody back together. I promise you.
As strange as it sounds, Jeffrey is the character making the most moral decisions of anyone in the movie. The entire world of this movie is filled with comically apathetic people. Like, no one even reacts to a head landing in a trash can. So the movie acknowledges morality exists, but only portrays it in obvious self-delusion. But I don't think that just because morality isn't portrayed means that it isn't implied. The movie is really critical of the degradation of women, showing all these misogynists from Jeffrey to Zorro as selfish and incompetent, with them all losing in the end. There really is no moral high ground in this movie. It is set in a cartoonish nightmare of sleaze. Yet precisely since it doesn't announce itself as critical of female subjugation, I can see this movie appealing to exactly the kinds of people who adhere to those toxic beliefs. It is called Frankenhooker after all, not Gentleman 23 Quai du Commerce, Mille Quatre Van Bruxelles. So this movie could start some people thinking about making life better for women whose minds are in most need of changing. Yes, I'm arguing that Frankenhooker is an important feminist film. Maybe this 50 Shades of Horror series really is making me lose my mind. So why do I put Frankenhooker here in terms of scariness? Surely this is the least realistic movie since Troll 2. But even if it isn't portrayed convincingly, this is easily the grossest concept we've come across so far. Especially those abominations that capture Zorro in the end. They're way more foul than even the Hungry Beast. The movie may not disturb you in its presentation, but the macabre and insane concepts are certainly perturbing. Which goes to show how much more important execution is compared to subject matter for overall scariness. This week's recommended review is from Cinemassacre, which is part of their ongoing Monster Madness series. The series has gone on for 15 years now and covers somewhere between 300 and 400 movies. Monster Madness is great for spoiler-light summaries of the most well-known to the most obscure horror movies. In this clip, James praises the lead actors, James Lorenz and Patty Mullen, for bringing the movie its unique sense of humor.
The actor who plays Jeffrey, James Lorenz, is perfect for the part. He's naturally funny without appearing like he's trying to be funny. Patty Mullen, who plays the Frankenhooker, is a little more goofy. She's always doing this twitch with her face, but it starts to grow on you. You can tell she must have had a really good sense of humor.
So check out Cinemassacre's Monster Madness 10 episode on Frankenhooker. The link's in the description. You may recall from the introduction that the jump from 16 to 17 is gonna be a doozy. We'll have to turn our brains back on for 2018's Annihilation. And here's where you can find it streaming. It'll be a polar shift with this sci-fi psychological horror film, but hopefully it's just barely scarier. See you next Saturday for Annihilation. Stay sharp, keep your wits, and try not to lose yourself in the shimmer.